Hey guys, ComicBook Debate here. I'm your host, Omar Faruqi, and this is the top 5 DCEU moments, in my opinion. I'll preface this list by saying it is a personal top 5 of this universe. I have specifically chosen what is, in my opinion, the absolute best and my personal favorite scenes. Number 5, Beautiful Lie. We have seen the death of the Wayne family multiple times, but in my opinion, none is better than what Zack Snyder pulled off in the first scene of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Let's start with Zimmer's amazing score. Tragedy is the one word I would use to describe this score. There's a feeling of sadness, but also anxiety with the way it was shot, with the constant switch back from the funeral to Bruce running away and back to his parents slowly meeting their end. We see Bruce trip and fall, and with every trip and fall, the score gets even more intense. This scene was perfect as an independent scene, but also to introduce us to this interpretation of the Batman. The monologue also adds some depth as we have Bruce explain to us what it was like before this traumatic event took place and what it actually did to him. Before, it was perfect things, diamond absolutes. And then it became the constant struggle of his life to the point where he says himself, what falls has fallen. He's referring to himself, but also his perception of the world. An amazing thing about the scene is it explains the character that is Batman by showing us that yes, it was indeed his parents' death that led him down the path he chose, but also why he chose the path in the first place. It was therapeutic for him to become the Batman and fight crime the way he did, but it also hindered his ability to fully heal at the same time. It's almost like running in place and feeling stuck almost. Another Another positive about this scene is the fact that it's a constant plot point throughout the film, and that speaks to how great the moment is from a world building standpoint. Number 4, Wonder Woman's entry in Batman v Superman. Probably the most badass entrance in CBM history, on par with Thor and Wakanda. I remember seeing this moment for the first time and just losing it as she entered the frame with Hans Zimmer's score going off. It's also our very first look at her live action. The moment literally screams excitement as she finally makes her debut on the big screen. Set up perfectly as this insane heroic moment where it looks like for a second that all hope is lost. Although we don't see much of Diana before this moment, we do get a glimpse of her mentality in this film. She seems like someone who is on her own, almost rogue. We learn later on that she walked away from mankind for a century, so this was a return of sorts for her, but also a debut at the same time. Number 3, the flight scene. After a long personal journey to find out who he really is, we finally see Clark with the S on his chest. There was a build-up to see him in his full glory, and the flight scene gives you exactly that. We get a full shot of him in the suit, with the cape flapping around, to start off with his father explaining how powerful he is, and what his place in the world would look like. Not only his place, but also how the world would react to him. As he starts to play around with probably his most beloved ability of flight, we see that it takes a couple of tests for him to get a grip on it. This ability is literally what makes him who he is. We think of Superman on his most basic level as a man that can fly. When he finally takes off, the score makes it feel like a triumphant celebration that he is finally Superman now. He was grounded for roughly 40 to 45 minutes, so the satisfaction of finally seeing him soar through the air is everything a Superman fan was waiting for. The kid in you just jumps out in this scene. Another positive about the scene is Zack Snyder lets this scene breathe a bit and lets you take in the glory of his first flight. As a Superman fan, this is probably one of the greatest Superman scenes in comic book history. Number 2, Superman's sacrifice. Man of Steel was a journey of Clark finding out who he is, and Batman v Superman is a story of him navigating the world with that reality. The whole movie is him trying to come to grips with the responsibility of being Superman. With the pressure of the world and also the manipulation of Lex Luthor, we see him fall into some doubt of whether or not the world is better without him, to the point where we see him say that Superman was never real. This deconstruction inevitably leads him to the climax of a mountain where he finds his father, his Earth father, who explains to him the world is broken and sometimes trying to fix something that can break it in another area. But what grounded them both was realizing the people they love are worth it. And even though the world can be unkind, you have to take responsibility that it is indeed your world at the end of the day. It's a situation that you've been put in. Nothing speaks to this like his sacrifice at the end. Him saying, "This is my world," and to Lois saying, "You're my world," is basically him realizing his own destiny, but also his own identity. Thematically, the moment is the apex of what Superman can be as a symbol. Add to this the visuals and Hans Zimmer's score, and you have the greatest live action Superman scene of all time, in my opinion. Number 1, the Martha scene. This is the one that will probably get the most eyebrow raising reaction. It'll come probably as a shocker to most people, but this scene can easily be seen as the most divisive scene, not only in the DCEU, but probably in CBM history. Loved by some, hated by others. The scene, like any other, has to be given the proper respect of understanding the theme of the entire film and the context in which the scene took place. Bruce has lost himself in his war against Superman. He sees him as a threat that can, quote unquote, burn the whole place down, and there's nothing we can do to stop him. And this powerlessness leads him to the darkest he's ever been. Add to that the manipulation of Lex Luthor, and his vision is completely clouded to the point where he doesn't even see him as human. As he says himself, "You were never a god, you were never even a man." Clearly shows his psychology towards Superman. The whole fight between them is one of immense emotion rather than just physical strength. At their core, they are both heroes, but the psychological circumstances of both of them is what causes them to fight. So it is only fair that their fight would end only if the psychological circumstances can change somehow, if one of them sees the light. Now, one may ask, how does this all link to the death of his parents? And the answer is Superman's destruction in Metropolis basically brings back the death of his parents into his psychology. There's a clear parallel to Jack and his parents. Thematically, it makes perfect sense for Batman to go into a trance as Superman asks him to save Martha. Remember, Martha was the last words his father said to him. It was the last words before his mother died. As we see the flashbacks, the Zimmer score kicks in, and you see how much this has really affected Bruce. It is to show Bruce that Clark is an actual person, a human, a man, someone who has a mother just like him. This is a moment of realization that is set up for them to become friends and partners. The whole point of this scene is to bring two titans together with such a bond that is unbreakable. And the bond has little to do with just the name. The name is a trigger. The name Martha is a trigger for Batman. And that's the trigger that kind of gets him out of a trance. But that's not the be-all, end-all. This was going to make him turn back to what he was when he became Batman. This was going to make him more hopeful, more optimistic. The depth, the score, and the thematic genius is what makes this scene the best in the DCEU for me personally. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below what are your top 5 moments of the DCEU. Hope to see you in the next one. From the Faruqi Bros, peace out.